everybody. Welcome back to the Round Table Battlefield. The table is round, the battles are aplenty, and we are ready to fight verbally once again. It's been a few months, actually. I seem to recall, I think the last time we did one, I want to say hockey season, perhaps?
Yeah, sounds about
Playoff
right.
hockey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've often said we don't fight enough.
No. Yeah, it's a little too hunky-dory around here. We need to
friendly around here.
We need to get a little rude. Cullen and Kevin are back once again, and we are going to talk about a divisive topic, and which we are no stranger to doing on this show in the past. But this is one that is topical, I will say, because it's been in the news recently.
Recent and topical.
Why don't you kind of introduce the topic?
Well, first I wanted to offer to all the viewers that you've recently passed a benchmark in episodes for your podcast with Kenzie. I thought
Kenzie
it would be
Chronicles.
nice to tell everybody what milestone you're working on next.
Well, we are a couple of things. We are working on doing a virtual podcast.
Yeah.
while changing it around. We've also passed 50 episodes.
There you go, 50 episodes. That's what I was saying.
Oh, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Yes, we have now since passed 50 episodes. We're actually on episode 56 now.
That's huge.
I know. We're on a light break right now as we work on transitioning the show into a more of a virtual format. But yeah,
Well done.
We're chugging. Anyway,
There's your foreground for our current talking point, which is I'll let you announce.
Let's get evil. No, I'm kidding. So, in case you have not been paying attention to the news, in which case I don't blame you, but in case you have been paying attention to the news, on September 3rd, 2025, York Regional Police Chief Jim McSween
That's right.
advised residents to comply with home invaders, stating, quote, "As it stands, we know the best defense for most people is to comply," following a fatal home invasion in Vaughan, Ontario. So that's quite a statement from a
huge.
police chief to say that if you are a victim of a home invasion, comply.
Comply your way out of it.
Don't defend yourself.
Yeah.
Out of, I guess, for the safety of your own well-being, perhaps. I don't. It's the reasoning. So why? Why would you want
Yeah.
to comply? And talking about crime more broadly, that's what today's topic is.
Yeah, and it's in the news a lot, actually. A lot of politicians in opposition and in government are talking about doing something about being tough on crime. This is going to, of course, spawn more discussions similar because, strangely enough, home invasions are the highest rising category of crime currently facing Canadians. And to not acknowledge that we're perhaps going in a wrong direction here with this kind of rhetoric is what I'll call it, because for most people, the best defense is to comply. I don't know if most is really a good word. For some maybe compliance might be the best. But what I do know is that when you take a self-defense class, especially for when women take a self-defense class, the first rule, like the mantra of that class, is to always resist. At every turn, at every opportunity, to always show defiance to your,
Attacker.
yeah, let's say attacker, even though it may not have gotten that far yet, depending on the scenario. But the mantra remains: always resist, always put up an opposition, always fight back. And I think if we were to try and get into the psyche of why self-defense classes have been consistently pushing that message to always resist, I suspect that in our brains, when something bad happens to us, if we just roll over and let it happen, I think it's more damaging after it's done. I think then we have to reconcile that, I wish I would have done more. Versus always resist, which then puts you in a mindset after the bad thing has happened. Well, at least I stood up for myself. At least I didn't, just let it happen. And if you have that mentality, I think your recovery is probably a little faster versus the opposite scenario where you don't resist. I think you start to beat yourself up over it. And I think it makes your recovery a lot more challenging because you're in a different mindset. Whereas always resist, every obituary fought till the last breath, right? You want to write that in an obituary. We're not talking about obituaries in this scenario. We're talking about people that have to live
Go on.
after, right? And I want to say, and I suspect victims want to be able to say that they fought to their last will, their last strength, their last ounce, because at least then you are in the right frame of mind to come out of it with an attitude that isn't, agoraphobia is one of those afflictions that happen to people after something bad happens. Then they say it's not worth it to go outside anymore. It's just too dangerous out there. I'm going to stay in my house, get my agoraphobia diagnosis, and everything will be fine because they'll give me lots of happy pills. Now,
Yeah.
anyways, the takeaway is comply the best defense for most people. We've already talked about self-defense classes preaching to always resist, and I agree with that advice, specifically because of the mindset it puts you in. But for a police chief to say that the best defense is to comply without qualifying, what is the situation where a best defense is actually to comply? Like, what is that situation? What does it look like? And if let's say the police chief had said something along the lines of, if the intruder brings a closed fist, make sure you have a bat. If the intruder brings a knife, make sure you have a gun. And if the intruder brings a gun, make sure you have pepper spray. That's the kind of, proportionate response to the threat that Canadian law is based on when it comes to self-defense. The self-defense is proportionality based. Whatever threat I bring to you, you're allowed to respond to that threat with sufficient force to negate my advantage. And that's the proportionality that the Canadian self-defense law is aiming for. I don't see that in this Mr. Jim McSween's statement. I don't see proportionality here. I see just lie down and wait for it all to be over. And I don't think that's a genuinely helpful statement to make. I'll shut up for a bit now.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there,
Yeah.
but I'll kind of go bit by bit, and we'll try and go backwards. So I will say, if you haven't really figured it out, we're on the same side of the coin, I would say, that we don't agree with this very blanket statement of just comply.
Right.
I don't agree with that for a number of reasons. But the one thing that I will say, first and foremost, from kind of my own notes, to say, as it stands, we know the best defense for most people is to comply. That is way too broad of a statement. That is so broad, it's almost a bit dumb to say.
I like that choice of word.
So, one thing I sort of believe, that when it comes to a lot of these very tough topics, whether that be crime or etc., they are complex. They require a lot of nuance. And I get, this was just a press conference at the police chief. Maybe he had other things to do that day and he just wanted to give a quick statement and leave. But to give these broad statements of, yeah, for most people, just comply, that's not the right messaging, because that tells, the victim of a crime that, just roll over. Just don't put up a fight. And that's not good for the empowerment of a person, especially when you look at things like home invasions, where if the person who is being attacked is a female, we see that sexual assault is one of those high things that is something that can happen.
Yeah.
And what does that do for the empowerment of that female? It doesn't do any good. It doesn't do any good. It just says, if you are to be assaulted, just comply until the police get there, if they do.
Yeah. And the damaging portion of that is, let's say you're fearful already because you live in a sketchy neighborhood, and so you have a reason to be afraid. For a police chief to say, Don't worry. Just lie down. Everything will be as good as it possibly could be. And when the cops get there, then we'll do something.
That just puts more fear into them, I feel.
I think you're exactly right. You know what? I think it puts the level of fear to the point where, let's say somebody recently graduated high school and wants to start working at their new career, but it involves they got to move to co-locate with their new company that they're going to start their career in. Maybe money is tight. Maybe they're moving into a sketchy neighborhood, and maybe that girl sees Jim McSween telling her to just comply her way out of anything bad that happens. Maybe she goes, you know what, I don't want that job nearly as bad as I thought I did. Maybe I'm going to stay at home where Dad and the dog are going to keep me safe and not this clown.
Yeah.
Because that's a real, tangible effect. I have my dad, I have my dog, I have
An alarm system.
who knows what it is.
Exactly.
All of the other things that maybe there's bats and pepper spray.
Machete.
Yeah, who knows? But anyways, to trade that and go into Jim McSween's world where we're just going to live in sketchy, cheap apartments and hope for the best, I don't think there's any real value to his words. In fact, I'd say his words were disingenuous. I would even accuse him of not using his own words, but reading the words that have been given to him by probably his boss. I don't think a cop would say something like this. In fact, I don't think
so either.
I don't think any cop. I don't know what his Jim's history is in the police force. I suspect it's not very frontline. And
Maybe it's more administrative.
yeah, because to come up with a cowardly statement that's either a lie that you don't believe or something that someone has told you to say, that's the only explanation that fits something, like you say, as dumb as this. And has so broadly brushed, because home invasions, there are 100 variables that have to be considered before you can even think about what you're going to do next. Do I run? Do I fight? Do I hide? There's 3 options that you need to come up with. You need to make that decision.
And there's some people like you have that fight or flight, but then you have also that other one where people they stand as still as a statue, like you're paralyzed into being still.
And that's why self-defense is so important, because it gets you out of that freeze.
Yeah, and it gets you into fight mode.
Well, fight or flight.
Fight or flight,
whichever
exactly. Whatever it is to keep you safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Not just hope that if you comply with the criminal, they will show mercy upon you. And this is, I think, going to talk into a little more of what I'm going to kind of talk about from my angle. Hoping that a criminal will show you mercy or especially in the context of a home invasion.
At 3 in the morning.
At 3 in the morning. This is likely a violent offender, a violent repeat offender. These are the demographics that are probably least going to show you mercy because they clearly have no regard for laws, deterrence, or people themselves if they are clearly reoffending. Now, why they are a violent criminal is another discussion. But again, to assume that someone who's in and out of jail is going to show you mercy because you complied, that is a gamble and a half. If someone has a gun pointed right at your face, and do you just hope that, well, if I give him my wallet, maybe he'll just leave and run away? What's to say that he just won't take your wallet and then shoot you, then run away?
And then you're left with could I have done more?
Exactly.
Question. And it's an unanswered question that you will never resolve, which means it's going to haunt you for the rest of your life.
And that gives criminals more power, knowing that they can just run wild and no one's going to do anything about it except for the police.
More to your point, the criminals are going to run amok. What about the criminal that's sitting home tonight thinking about knocking over that house he's been looking at for weeks, but hasn't done it yet because he quite hasn't gotten over the risk-reward part of the equation? And then a guy like Jim McSween comes on and says, don't worry, nobody's going to fight back. You can do whatever you want. Do you think he goes out and robs that house tonight?
I think he is going to make it. He's going to go do it right now.
I think you're probably pretty close to the truth, and I think Jim McSween should be ashamed of himself for encouraging criminals to go out and invade houses, which is exactly what he has done here.
Yeah. it's unfortunate because it's unfortunate. Nobody wants to be the sufferer of a crime like this. No one ever wants to be a victim of violent crime. But the reality is it does happen, even though historically since the 1970s, these statistics have fallen, it still does happen. And if you are not prepared for this, it's bad. And I would really just keep like reaffirming that the regret that you would have, that could I have done better? Could my life or my living situation could have been better if I had fought back? Because again, what happens in a home invasion, someone dies, you lose thousands of dollars of worth of possessions, your house burns down, whatever.
Well, and if our young girl that just moved out has a home invasion and she complies, who knows what happens?
Exactly.
But it's different than if a young girl has a home invasion and she answers that home invasion with a pistol and a warning shot. That's a totally different outcome.
Yeah.
And both outcomes likely don't harm the offender, which is what we're trying to play nice and not hurt criminals. We're trying to rehabilitate criminals. Well, that's what the warning shot is for. But why a girl alone in a economically depressed area isn't packing heat? I can't justify it. I would.
I would say for an individual, if they don't fight back, I think you could probably broadly assume this, but for a victim who doesn't fight back and they suffer whatever it is, that probably would be worse for that person in the long term, not just because of losing their wallet or losing money, but PTSD. Because again, from sexual assault, being assaulted, coming within an inch of your life, that would wreck you for a long time. And then that just compounds regret of, I wish I could have done more.
In the military, we had speakers come and give us firsthand experience with their PTSD, and there was a common theme to all the speakers. And the common theme was that all of the sufferers of PTSD that we listen to, there are more, but the ones that were on the speaking circuit for us that day all had a similar story to tell, in that the cause of their PTSD was that they saw something so horrible that they couldn't process it in their brain. What really haunted them, though, was that they were powerless to do anything about it. Their hands were tied. They could see the problem. They knew what the solution was, but they couldn't do anything about it. Boom, PTSD. They're powerless. If you remove power, you're basically handing PTSD. And so basically, every PTSD case that comes from a home invasion, how does Jim talk his way out of that?
Again,
I can't.
He can't. But really, because it's been said now, it's gone all over the internet. There's been articles written about it. There's the whole 9 yards. But I guess maybe we can kind of advance with this discussion, because now it comes, because then this almost starts to branch out into being tough on crime, or the smooth, again, maybe, sorry, actually, why don't you?
Well, you had made a downward sloping chart, and I think you were talking about crime.
Crime, broadly speaking, has fallen since the 70s.
Okay, well, and your source for that is?
Well, generally there are graphs and statistics that have come out about...
I believe you, by the way.
Right. It just comes from, in the early 90s, there was a huge spike of crime, and then generally it's been falling across the board since. Yes, it's back on the rise, but if you to look at a historical graph, it's not as bad as it once was, but yes, it is rising. That's just the point I was...
Yeah, well, we had a peak in the 70s. It was a very violent time in the 70s.
Economic downturn.
Yeah, there was a lot of things going. Well, I mean, gas,
lead in the gasoline.
Gas shortages, you name it. It was a busy time. A lot was going on. But anyways, as you say, we have managed a gradual decline since that on paper. The interesting thing I learned about the Canadian Severe Crime Index, I believe it's called, or maybe it's just Severe Crime Index. It is a multivariable number, and what that means is they track many different things, amalgamate it all into one. It's like your fire risk, threat of forest fires, kind of that sort of thing. What I learned about that particular statistic is that in order to determine what the severe crime index is, What they do is they look at how long of prison sentences are being administered, handed out by the courts. So if the courts were to, say, arbitrarily decide to cut all sentences in half for every guilty verdict that they render, that would shoot the CSI into saying there's no severe index. Our severe crime index is now much, much lower, even though nothing has happened other than judges started handing out lighter sentences. And I learned that just the other day, actually. I'm still kind of in shock about it. You'd think severe crime would result on how many severe crimes are happening. No, that's just one variable in this equation. How long the sentences are.
How it's dealt with gets
how it's
factored
dealt with gets factored into the crime index. So I don't think when I see people say crime is decreasing, well, I'm not sure if that's entirely true, but I do know that sentences are decreasing because of the parole reform that is being demanded right now.
Yeah, the bail and
Bail
and parole and
Parole,
just
all of those.
yeah, all that's been because this kind of gets broadly into more like the topics that I was going to talk about because the main talking point is that we need to be tougher on crime.
Yeah.
Crime has gotten too soft over the past 10 years of governance. We need to, again, like how human nature is, once the pendulum swings too far the one way, instead of trying to go back into the center where usually that's where it's a gray area, there's where nuance can be, we decide to be broad and shoot it back.
Get her all the way over there.
That's, you see that in how people vote as well. Look at the province of Manitoba.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to talk about tough on crime. Some notes about tough on crime.
Yeah.
So some of these come from the I think it's the CCSP. I believe it's abbreviated. This comes from a variety of sources, but declining crime versus rising incarceration. Crime rates in Canada have generally fallen over recent decades, yet prison populations rose during the Harper government's tough on crime era, so 2006 to 2015. Budget cuts impacted rehabilitation programs, with prisons turning into overcrowded of punitive environments that didn't improve community safety. In conclusion, tougher policies didn't deliver on the promise of a safer community. Instead, they fueled higher incarcerations without obvious benefit.
Yeah, it's a common criticism.
Throw them all in jail and just throw away the key as well.
Well, obviously that's not a workable solution, and I am dismayed when I hear conservative governments underfunding restorative justice.
Exactly.
I think that's a very, very valid critique of any justice system, regardless of which political party happens to be in charge of it. I believe rehabilitation is the key to justice. Catching offenders, imprisoning offenders, that's a huge portion of it, and that's because there is a rehabilitation opportunity while you're in prison. In fact, many prisoners will say that going to prison was the best thing that ever happened to them. They got into the prison library system. They got into the prison service work, like you can do jobs around the prison. It gave them a sense of purpose. It expanded their mind. It gave them a new skill. Woodworking is a beautiful example of how you can go to prison and improve your life when you come out of it. Now, what rehabilitation needs to do is accept the prisoner from the prison, recognize the skills that he's developed while he's in prison, and then leverage those to transition them into the workforce. Our transitional housing unit in Brandon,
like the John Howard Society, that's the golden example.
It's a great example.
We are in the midst of, or almost finished building one here in Brandon, Manitoba.
Very soon we're going to be able to see real statistics on what kind of an effect that can have. Yep. But it also gives the carrot to the inmate. If you behave according to the policies and learn a skill, we've got a great place for you to live while you learn to apply that skill in a workforce environment. And then once you're set up and established in that, then you transition out of transitional housing
and back into everyday society.
Back into society, and feeling empowered that this time it's going to be different. This time I'm actually able to support myself, and I've got the tools that I need to be a productive member of society. Everybody wins under rehabilitative justice. There's no question about that. But to say that you don't believe in deterrence, that you don't believe in prison sentences, that's the wrong message to send, because deterrence it's the only thing we have to try and convince people
It's not to do crimes.
to not commit crimes.
And see, because again, this is where the nuance comes in, because you want to say that, okay, we can, but we want to rehabilitate. That's restorative justice. But then again, there's the nuance of what crimes and what sentences are rehabilitatable. Like, for example, some people will say, okay, if someone is caught doing narcotics, okay, there's a drug addiction that we need to work on. That's a thing that we can rehabilitate. Someone who has done petty crime, that's rehabilitation. But then you look at someone goes on a 5-person killing spree, or we have to kind of go there, like horrible sexual assault cases, child molestation, like these very dark and immoral things that are almost unforgivable. How do you handle this? Because when you look at a lot of the justice system and how some of these people who do these awful, unspeakable crimes, this is more, you see this almost more in the United States, but you can see it here in Canada. People like who are on like the sex offender list here in Manitoba, getting kicked out after only just a couple of years, and they are people that are, again, and Winnipeg police will say they are very likely to reoffend.
Yeah.
Also, we just kicked them back out.
I hate that word.
So there's a problem here. There's a clear problem from the broader justice system of how we treat crimes, what is rehabilitatable and what's not. It's tough.
It's because prisons have turned into places of punishment, and we all accept that the punishment of a prison is not being able to be out in the real world. So while you're in the prison, you're already being punished. You don't need to be punished more once you're in prison. Once you're in prison, you're supposed to get access to the library. You're supposed to get access to the woodworking shop, to the cafeteria, to all of the different jobs that are available. Or you can choose to just sit in your cell and rot. Right. And everyone has individual choice. Inmates are no different. The trick is to set up a prison to succeed. Yeah, you have to be in here for 6 years. Nothing can change that. But at least when you get out of here 6 years from now, you're going to be with a skill that's in demand. And we're going to give you an opportunity to use that skill in real world situations so you can see how you can establish yourself into the community and be accepted as a productive member. And I think that's available regardless of the crime that's been committed. Now, obviously, as you so correctly pointed out, different crimes require different levels of rehabilitation.
Exactly.
Obviously. And not all criminals are suitable for rehabilitation. Like Charles Manson, I don't think he should ever.
I don't think he should have gone back into like him and Ted Bundy or Timothy McVeigh. These people should never see the light of day ever again.
Just melt the key.
Yeah.
In a volcano.
Just build a whole wall of concrete. Don't even put a door.
No doors.
Just an insane asylum.
Yeah, welcome to your new prison. Where's the door?
There is none.
Sorry. We couldn't afford a door. It's the conservatives in the government. They won't give us doors.
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, so that's quite a thing to talk about. And I would even say as well, sometimes it depends on the jury or the judge.
Very much, yeah.
And that also then adds a whole layer of complex and nuance. So that's why, again, this kind of circles back to the main point of you can't make broad statements. People will still do it anyway, but there's really no merit to making these broad statements when it comes to how to treat crime, how to punish, how to rehabilitate, because it's so complex. I would have to probably say it's one of the most complex things of general modern society.
And, I could just agree with you, but I'll agree with you with a spin. I would agree with you, substance, context, everything, but I would suggest that it's such a complicated topic that maybe we should invite somebody to come and inform us their position on the subject.
And introduce it. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I was specifically thinking of Chief Bates from Brandon's police service.
I would love if we got a judge.
I would love if a judge would be amazing. All of them to inform us.
Would be
all of them would be amazing. And of course, we would happily extend invitations to both the judiciary, the police chief, or a representative to come and explain, make this make sense.
Yeah.
This is very concerning from a Canadian police chief to be going down this road. Jim McSween's got 4 kids. I hope none of them are daughters. Could you imagine?
Well, hold on.
After
Keep
hearing,
talking.
yeah,
I read that. I read that in the notes here. I just wanted to see because I think it actually goes into detail.
Oh, no way. Because if his daughter moves
really,
out on her own and
what does
in
that
a sketchy
What does
area,
that tell your own child?
Yeah, what's the message you just gave to your daughter?
Just comply.
Just comply your way out of it. Yeah, bad things might happen, but oh well.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do? It's a complicated, messy world. It's an absolute atrocity, and he should be ashamed of himself. In fact, what he should have done, Jim, if you're listening, if I was a police chief and I had to say those words, I'd resign. I'd resign in protest, and I'd walk away, and I would never look back. It's just absolute shame. It's unconscionable to tell people to just comply their way out of violence. I can't even believe we're having this conversation.
Yeah. Not to be funny, but I should say the views and opinions that are on this program do not represent the views and opinions of Westman Communications Group. I just want to make that very clear. These are just the opinions of 2 people. But yeah, I think just generally, just to kind of spin off of what you said, to me, if I had to make that, I'd be cringing. I'd be cringing internally the entire time. No matter how much I agreed or disagreed with it, I'd just be going, this broad of a statement, again, this could be a social media thing. It could be, this is for clicks or for virality. Maybe. I would hope that
maybe Jim's only got 4 more mortgage payments left to pay off his house.
And they would give him a raise if
I bet
but here's the thing, we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know, you don't know either. So it's just
we're just
slinging mud at a wall.
What sticks.
Yeah, slinging mud at the wall and see what sticks. So why don't we pivot a little bit? Because so we talked about, well, obviously the opening statement. Then we talked about crime and the prisons. Why don't we talk about root causes of crimes? Because I feel like that these conversations eventually will become, why does crime happen? Why do we have crime? What makes a criminal? And one of the common things, because I think we danced with this a little bit earlier on, poverty.
Yeah.
Poverty seems to be many people that this is the main cause of crime. And I've got some notes to talk about that.
Ooh,
because I'm going to challenge this theory saying that poverty, it's a factor, but it's not the only reason. That's one thing. I think most reasonable, level-headed people can agree, okay, poverty's not the only thing. But let's talk about just what can make a criminal in the context solely of poverty.
Oh, this will be interesting.
So, what the Canadian data says. Lower income families are more likely to live in neighborhoods with higher violent and property crime rates. A 2022 Statistics Canada profile of CMAs notes this directly. Neighborhood disadvantage and crime clustered together, but strength differs by city and measurement. A federal study mapping Ottawa and Saskatoon found only a weak citywide statistical link in Ottawa, but a stronger link in Saskatoon. In Saskatoon, the share of households on government transfers was the strongest predictor of neighborhood crime levels. Who is most at risk? Justice Canada's review highlights that offenders tend to be young and disadvantaged, and that neighborhoods marked by poverty, high density, transience, and dilapidation sustain higher crime or social disorganization. It also cautions that some property crimes hit higher income households more, such as breaking and enter and auto theft, because of target value and opportunity. So the social determinants of justice, the Department of Justice names income, employment, housing, education, and health as core factors shaping contact with the justice system, pointing out to mechanisms by which poverty increases risk. So again, it's, yes, you could say lower income areas can breed crime, but at the same time, that can still happen in rich neighborhoods because again, there's a nice Camaro out front. Oh, they have a nice, lovely garden.
He left the keys in it.
Ooh, exactly. So, again, nuance. I think that's almost the kind of underlining topic of this entire conversation today. It's nuance. You can't look at it from just one narrow point of view. You have to. We're broadening the minds. That's the goal of Roundtable Benefit. We're trying to broaden the mind. Look through different angles.
Yep, seeing it from every point of view that we can conjure up. I would like to reverse engineer the question and ask you, what prevents people from committing crime?
I think it's a number of factors. I think one of the first things I would say is having I think it all starts young. It starts from your childhood. Yes, you can have a good childhood and become a criminal through whatever means, but I think the biggest determination is an unstable house as a child, however that may look. Whether it's
that's on the causing crime pile. Like, what's the antidote to the broken home and all of those?
So like, how do we fix?
Well, no.
Or sorry.
What is it about? We'll talk about you. I assume you haven't committed any crimes lately.
I would hope not.
Okay.
I may have put my gum on the. No, I'm just kidding. I put gum out on the street. Isn't that littering? No.
So let's assume you haven't committed any crimes lately.
I have not.
And then put the question to you personally: why did you not commit any crimes in the most recent time span you can think of? What is it about you, either personally or in the moment, that keeps you out of a courtroom?
The immediate answers I want to give is a combination of education and the fear of what might happen. If, like, basically, like the fear of causing harm to another person. That's how I was raised, and that's how I am as a person. Knowing that my actions affect someone else's life, good or bad. When it's bad, I don't want that to happen. I feel like you have a responsibility as a person to treat those around you with respect and know that even decisions that you might think are careless can have an effect towards someone else. Also, I just think, being educated, you recognize that, hard drugs are extremely detrimental to your health and that murder is generally wrong if it's unprovoked.
Yeah.
So
my favorite one is, how come you didn't rob a bank last night?
I was too tired.
I was too tired.
I had a stomach ache. No.
But it's I jokingly bring it into the round table because not that we wrestle with questions like this, but it is a fair question. You didn't rob a bank last night. I would like to know why. Obviously, upbringing, current circumstances, education. Many things go into why you didn't rob a bank yesterday. But and you correctly identified a deterrent, right? The getting caught and having to pay for that crime. However, if you were of the mindset where jail's easy, done it before, no big deal. All my buddies are in jail, so I haven't seen them in a while. That's a mindset that you could almost see robbing a bank, and it's totally different from your mindset. Your mindset is all of the bad things that could happen to me if I were to go through with this. Let's just call it a stupid, crazy idea. But there's all of these reasons preventing you from doing it. But if you just put yourself in a habitual reoffenders situation, now these people aren't afraid of the justice system. In fact, they know how to work it. They know what cards to play, when to play those cards to get the most lenient result at every turn until they finally realize that they've got the system beat. And then all of a sudden, a bank is just another place to get a couple of bucks so that they can go to the liquor store. And that's the difference between how your brain approaches the problem. I'm broke. I could rob a bank, or I could do overtime. What am I going to do?
Exactly. Yeah.
And you can see how your brain would come up with a completely different answer than a habitual reoffender. How they might approach that problem that they're broke and they need to they need money to live. The best example probably that you and I can come up with in a forum like this is obviously if you're at the point where you need to rob a bank to survive, there's a 1-800 number specifically made for you.
Exactly.
Right? But if you don't use it, if you don't ask for help,
If you don't know about it.
if you don't know about it, then the system has failed you. But if you do use it, or if you have previous experience with the justice system, and then it's the justice system's job to make sure they empower you with all the tools and skills so that you approach being broke the same way you approach it. I guess I have to do more overtime. I guess I have to pick up some odd jobs, maybe, like teenagers mowing lawns to earn some money. Right? The point is there's so many other ways to survive that don't involve robbing banks that I think that's the task of restorative justice, is to enable all of those conversations to happen.
I think keeping busy is one of the things that
yeah.
I think one of the main things, and this is just my own thought process, I'm not saying this is
idle
100%
hands.
fact, but I think like as a kid and as a teenager, I think one of the biggest things that even if you came from a bad home or a good home, what keeps you from doing crime is keeping the children busy, whether they get a job. Or in my example, I was always involved with sports. Like I did soccer, I did karate, I did swimming, I did football. I did all of these things that always hogged my time.
Yeah.
So the odds of me, and I did know better even for a child at the time, but my odds of being influenced or going down a darker path get heavily mitigated when the time to do it is just not there.
Yeah.
There's a lack of it.
Yeah.
And I think, again, you see people that, again, who live out on the streets, who are homeless, drug addicted, whatever, violent, they don't have jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I mean, there's several reasons for that fact, but when you don't have a job and you don't have anything to do all day.
Well, the first question is, what's their marketable skill? And I suspect you know what that answer is, and that's the problem. We can't let people out without marketable skills out of jail. It's a recipe for disaster.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a marketable skill in order to use to support yourself, we know exactly what you're going to do to support yourself.
And especially
you and I know it,
yeah.
but they don't figure that. I think they know it too, but they're powerless.
Especially also just to like add on to that fact, like if they don't have any positive resources to go to, like for example, if they don't have any family members with them, if they don't have like a brother who's gone down a good path, if they don't have loving parents who are willing to help them, if they have nobody, no skills, no job lined up, and they get just booted back out of the prison, like I'm sorry, but you're kind of just asking for it.
Yeah.
It's just it's an unfortunate thing that happens, but it's just,
well, I would love a judge to sentence a convicted criminal to learn a skill.
Yeah.
Get your Red Seal electricians, and then we'll talk about parole. Until then, in jail with you. So the reason I say it that way is because, like you were saying, you got to keep busy. Okay, why do I want to keep busy? Well, you want to accomplish a goal. Well, what's my goal? Well, I don't know. All right, there's where the judge comes in. Your new goal is to become a Red Seal electrician. Off you go. I don't care if you actually do it or not, but you're not getting out of jail unless you can support yourself with a marketable skill. Yeah. And then erase the time question, because we argue about should this penalty or should this crime
should get this get 10
penalty,
years versus 20 years. Yeah,
give me a break. Let the inmate decide when he gets out, and let that be determined by how hard they work while they're there.
But again, with nuance. there comes that variable that it depends on
Absolutely.
on what the person has done. And then But then I feel like that would almost spark some sort of debate about like now we're tiering criminals and how that's maybe cruel in some people's
Well, yeah,
eyes.
it means if you want to get your red seal for free, you just go knock over an old lady and you're good. Your ticket, your golden ticket.
Exactly. We don't want to incentivize people to do it. That's the problem. Because
Right.
if someone, for
And
example,
that's
like
why we make the prison way much more painful than the regular
exactly,
way.
because like
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like in a place where like if you're homeless and if it's like in around here where it's stupidly cold in the winter,
Mm-hmm.
you might think, well, I might just go commit a crime and then I have somewhere warm to sleep at night.
Lots of people do it.
It's better than sleeping outside in the cold. And I think why someone would want to do that, I think that broadly goes more to like, you know, economic conditions and
Yeah,
poverty.
and they also should be using that 1-800 number that we were talking about.
Exactly.
Or at least finding out.
The soup kitchen, Samaritan House, all that.
Right. There are so many better options than spending the winter in jail. And there's lots of people, all of the charities would be more than willing to help if you're
That's
willing.
what they're for.
Yeah, if you're willing to put in the time, they know the people that can solve your problems. But all you got to do is show up.
And maybe even put in some effort.
Need to show up. Put in a little, put a smile on your face. Show up. Help out where help is needed.
Put on your Sunday best.
Put on your Sunday best, and I guarantee you, someone will find the resource and connect you to it.
But then, of course, how do you get a person to do that if they don't want to, or if they've never done that in their life?
Yeah, it's trust.
That's trust, and that's tricky to try and convince like a fully grown adult. Children are easier because they're more impressionable. They're always learning. They just soak up knowledge like a sponge. When
Well,
you get to an adult, that slows down.
The great way to build trust is to start small. Instead of Red Seal electrician, maybe we teach them how to macrame. Like, I'm just using that as an example. Something,
Learn how to cook.
yeah. All of these classes, and I'm sure there are lots of classes available in prison, but let your release from prison be contingent on mastering, say, a couple of basic living skills: cooking dinner, laundry,
Yeah.
all
Dishes.
Yeah,
Like
all
the
of-
most simple things. 'Cause I
cleaning
think,
the toilet,
exactly.
all of it.
That's I think where again you see that transitional housing with the John Howard Society. I can see how the John Howard Society could expand if they haven't done so already. They could expand that to like the actual prison system where they show you like the most bare bones basic. Transitional housing can be, yeah, you get to now apply those skills, and then maybe they'll teach you more like advanced stuff like paying your taxes and like filing income tax and like just all that.
Yeah, like they'll show you about the self-scrubbing bubbles. In prison, you get a toothbrush, but in transitional housing, you get to use the spray and walk away. See?
The more dignified way of doing
Well,
it. Yeah.
Well, it's a trust-building exercise,
Exactly,
is
yeah,
what I
that's about
mean to
trust.
impress, right? We show you simple things in prison. We show you easier way to accomplish those things in transitional, and then we launch you into the market housing with a skill and the tools to be, to get along with your neighbors, really, is what we're trying to accomplish here. And I think there are so many better ways to do it than the ways that we've tried, because we've tried and failed, and then we try and fail, and we try. And I don't care how far back you look. It's just a pattern of try, fail, try, fail. And I think our severe crime index is actually going up. I think using prison sentences to artificially lower it is insincere.
Being too tough on crime and being too soft on crime, they just don't work.
They just don't accomplish
And
anything.
again, it seems like the governments are just content with just going one or the other. Why not meet in the middle where some of the things that we've been saying?
Yeah.
Learn a skill.
If an inmate shows up in jail with Velcro shoes, well, here's a pair of laced shoes, and I'm going to teach you how to tie those shoes. And then
Like,
we're going to build our
Treat
trust.
them like a human,
Yeah.
not as someone to scoff at.
And trust comes in levels, right? You start small, you work your way up. Maybe day 1 he learns to tie his shoes. Maybe day 1,000 he's a Red Seal electrician. But if we don't start with tying shoes, how will we ever get to a Red Seal?
Exactly.
We
Like we
need to
can't
start
we
somewhere.
cannot throw someone into a cell and just
Yeah.
throw away the key. And
Slam the
And
door.
then 10 years later, we expect them to come back out and they're all of a sudden
I'm fine now.
they're a fully integrated person into society. They've worked through their grief, their addiction, the reason why they were there. No.
It's laughable.
Leave it just to the individual, like the person who's, again, drug addicted, never knew any different. that does not work.
No, I would totally be fine with a prison just having a bunch of bachelor apartments, and release from that prison is whoever's got the best looking suite. Like whoever has made the best looking suite, the toilet is the cleanest, passes inspection, white glove, like the whole works. And then you set up prison from being a time limited punishment, and you convert it into an opportunity to show us how you can perform once we let you out. And then when you show us, demonstrate to us that you're ready, well, yeah, off you go. You've got a marketable skill. You can take care of a space. You can take care of yourself.
You've built trust.
You've built trust, and we trust that now you're in a better frame of mind because you're actually thankful that the justice system has empowered you versus punished you. It's a different mindset, just like we were talking about how it takes a different mindset when you're trying to decide whether to be knock over the bank or not. You have to get them out of the mindset they're in, put them into the mindset that makes decisions like your mindset makes decisions, so that, well, I mean, obviously the big happy hug at the end is we all live together, but the point is we can't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results.
That's the definition of
insanity.
But kind of in conclusion, I think
Yeah.
we've talked about some good topics today. We've covered, well, the topic of today from the recent words of the York police chief.
Yeah.
And we've talked about crime and prison and rehabilitation, poverty. We've kind of covered some general areas, but I think a very important question is, what do you think?
Oh, yes.
What do you think it is?
What do you
Have a conversation with the people in your life that you trust. See what everyone else thinks.
Yeah.
Maybe we've opened up a horizon in your mind, and that's, maybe you want to go have a discussion. Maybe you want to go to city council and maybe talk about this, because it has to start somewhere. If you want reform and you want society to be a better place, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah, and
Complaining on social media does nothing.
And I would even extend our invitation to Chief Bates. I would even extend it to the Minister of Justice. I got to meet him a couple times. It seems like a reasonable fellow, and I think he would probably do a great job informing us of both the problems that he's facing on his side of the equation, and he would probably be able to tell us the problems that the restorative side is also experiencing. So yeah, another formal invitation to Chief Bates and the Minister of Justice, whose name escapes me, I'm sorry. But we'll have a chance to let everybody know who the Minister of Justice is if he shows up.
Do you think we could get Mark Carney on an episode?
Maybe on Zoom.
Maybe on Zoom.
Maybe on Zoom.
Yeah.
You never know.
Never know. Never say never.
If the Minister of Justice has some points that the federal government needs to address, it's entirely possible. We'll see. Time will tell.
I have Mark's phone number.
Yeah.
I'll ring him up. I'll ring him up. Mr. Carney, how's it going? You're coming on the show.
We go live to Ottawa now. And have his face come up right here. Yeah, little TV.
Yeah.
Maybe someday.
Maybe someday.
Maybe someday.
Never say never.
There was one final point I just wanted to wrap it up with, because it does talk about what we're trying to do here, and it's basically a feel-good message. It says, let's advocate for balanced policies that empower residents to defend themselves when reasonable, while ensuring law enforcement remains a reliable partner in our safety. I think it sums it right up.
Boom. You've heard it. The ball's in your court now.
Gosh, I hope they do something.
I hope they listen to that,
Yeah.
because that's a pretty reasonable statement, I think.
I hope so. I hope everything, even my, some of the stronger language I used was more to prompt action. I really hope that somebody takes a second look at this and examines our history of proportional self-defense and tries to find a way to continue that into the future, because complying our way out of anything, I don't think it's a rational approach.
I don't know. I just feel like that would be a slippery slope that would probably cause more harm.
Slope, yeah.
Would cause more harm than good in the long run.
I would agree. All right. Well, I think we had another productive roundtable.
I think so.
Hopefully they think so too.
We hope that you think so too as well. If you or someone you know is interested in doing a podcast here in-house in WCGTV, or if you wish to jump on with us, you can email us at wcgtv@westmancom.com. To Police Chief Bates, the Minister of Justice, if any of you are interested, the invitation has been humbly extended. And we hope that you enjoyed watching today's episode. And from Colin and Kevin, we will see you soon.
Very well put.